Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. This video is focusing on Gillian Clarke's poem Catrin. I'm going to take you through 5 key moments of the poem and do an in-depth analysis of language and structure. There is another video available for you on context and form, so do keep your eyes out for that one. It's in the edXL Conflict Poetry playlist. But for now, let's get started. Okay, so let's look at the beginning of the poem. I can remember you, child. This is the first line, and straight away we've got the impact of the noun child, which is a reminder of their kind of differences, like the power dynamic between them. It's also a slight sense of distance, which kind of makes sense in this poem, which is all about the kind of struggle for independence between the two of them. And then I've skipped down to line 6 so that you can see how that first line is repeated. I can remember you, child. Then she describes the hospital room. And then line 6, I can remember you, our first fierce confrontation, the tight red rope of love, which we both fought over. Okay, so there's lots going on here. First of all, again, you can see this idea about conflict and the struggle for independence through these shifting pronouns, moving from the direct second person pronoun you, directly addressing Catrin, to then the more inclusive first person plural pronoun our first confrontation. And note the fact that it's first fierce confrontation, sorry. The determiner first here is a suggestion that there's going to be plenty more confrontation and conflict to come between the two of them. But the fact that it's a first means that she is, of course, describing the birth. That's the first confrontation between a mother and a child. And notice the way that she uses this metaphor. It's a fierce confrontation. So again, it suggests power and suffering, and of course it does, because childbirth is obviously excruciatingly painful, or so I am told. It's also sort of emphasized through that fricative alliteration. Now you can just say alliteration, that's absolutely fine, but fricative is for those sounds that are forced out of the kind of pursed lips like that. So the sound is fricative, as is like v as well, and other such sounds, but it creates quite a harsh and almost angry tone, so it fits with this kind of overall idea of conflict. Okay, and then this metaphor, we've got a new metaphor of the tight red rope of love. Now this is actually describing the umbilical cord that connects mother and baby. So it's to do with that connection and closeness. But again, the fact that it's a rope of love is again that positive connection between mother and child, yet it is tight. It's sort of restrictive in that way. And again, this conflict between the pain and suffering of birth and the love that goes with it is really created through this semantic field of conflict that we have running through it. You know, so we've got fierce, we've got confrontation, and then fought over, like it's a battle between the two of them. Okay, so I've skipped now down a little bit around line 11. I wrote all over the walls with my words, coloured the clean squares with the wild, tender circles. Now that does continue, wild, tender circles of our struggle to become separate, just so that you've got the full context of these quotes. So let's start off by the fact that we've got a metaphor here, writing all over the walls with my words. So the walls are depicting the kind of clinical setting that she's in of the hospital room. And so this metaphor is actually talking about what she said, but more likely what she shouted during childbirth. And the fact that it's all over the walls, it's the kind of explosive nature of a woman giving birth, and the cries and the shouts that she would have uttered. And we've got this alliteration of the W, the rope, well, that's more of an R actually, the walls and the words and with. So there's a kind of sense of continuity building, which is important in terms of the imagery as well. Okay, and then we've got another form of alliteration. This one's more plosive, coloured the clean squares. So again, it's much more of a kind of punchier, harsh sound. coloured the clean squares with the wild tender circles. So we've got this incredible metaphor here. And it's also very, very symbolic because she's drawing attention to the fact that the hospital room that she's in is so sterile, like she referred to it as hot and white earlier on in the poem, but she adds colour to that. So the love that she has for her daughter and the pain that she's suffering as she's giving birth to her create a vibrancy and a life in the room. They colour that wall with the wild, tender circles. Now, wild, tender is an oxymoron because obviously they're very, very opposing. And again, it's to do with that conflict between love and struggle. And the image of the circles, the wild, tender circles of our struggles, suggests that it is this kind of like ongoing repetitive struggle, which makes sense because that struggle lasts all the way through the poem and into Catrin being older and a teenager. But everything in this section feels very kind of like continual. You get that through the alliteration as well. Now, the end of this stanza, we've got this very short utterance. We shouted to be two, to be ourselves. So such a few number of words, we've got quite a lot to say. So first of all, look at the tense. So the first verb, we want, is in present tense rather than we wanted. So again, suggesting the longevity of those ideas about wants and needs and desires, like they're still present. And then we move into the past tense with the verb shouted. But again, look at the fact that the repetition here of the first person plural pronoun, it's both of them together. She's shouting because she's in childbirth. The baby is shouting because babies cry. And then she attributes that to this desire for dependence. Because, of course, when baby is in the tummy, they're very much united, the umbilical cord connecting them. Now it's about becoming separate entities, and they're both struggling for that, both of them together. And that is emphasized through the anaphora, excuse me, in these utterances, to be two, to be ourselves. Just a reminder that anaphora is a type of repetition where words or phrases are repeated at the beginnings of clauses or lines or sentences. If you think to yourself, I'm not going to remember that word, just say repetition. That's fine too. But yeah, so they wanted to be two, to be ourselves. And now what we've got is we've got this sort of juxtaposition between the idea of independence and togetherness. So we want to be two separate entities, and then we've got this reflexive pronoun. We want to be ourselves, which suggests a togetherness, but also it's a word that kind of like links to identity, their own individual people. And now what we've got is a chunk from the second stanza. It's not the beginning of the stanza. So the beginning of the stanza still continues with the struggle in the glass tank. And then there's a caesura, which changed us both. Caesura, full stop. And then we get this line, still I am fighting you off. And really this marks the kind of shift in the poem. You could describe this as a volta, which is that kind of dramatic shift in kind of topic, because we're moving into the present, also emphasized by that adverb still, suggesting the conflict continues, and the present progressive tense of I am fighting, the ing type verb. So present progressive again saying that this struggle for independence continues. I'm standing you off as you stand there with your straight, strong, long brown hair and your rosy, defiant glare. I love this description of her daughter because it's sort of powerful and beautiful, but also so normal as well, such kind of typical descriptions of a child. We've got the asyndetic listing of the straight, strong, long brown hair. Really lovely assonant adjectives there, strong and long. And your rosy, defiant glare. Now, that is just gorgeous because rosy as a colour, as an adjective, is really positive. It suggests youth and it suggests health. And then there's this juxtaposition with the adjective defiant in the noun phrase, defiant glare. So it's demonstrating one conflict, because if you think about the connotations of the noun glare, it suggests a kind of sense of anger, but also the sense of defiance is Catrin's independence shining through. And yes, there's struggle and conflict there, but you kind of get a sense of the mother's pride in her power there as well. Now, sorry about how long the quote is, I know, but it's very difficult not to include all of the good bits. So we've got the end of the poem. From the heart's pool, that old rope, tightening about my life, trailing love and conflict. Key themes of the poem. As you ask, may you skate in the dark for one more hour. Okie cokes. So we've got that repeated image, that metaphor of the old rope, which is the umbilical cord, but it's coming from the heart's pool, a metaphor for this kind of massive resource of love. So you kind of get the sense of where the conflict is coming from now. It's a place of concern and protection, but that connection between the two of them that was once the umbilical cord is still there metaphorically, and it tightens about her life. So that verb tightening is suggesting that that love, which is probably coming in like fear and protection here, is sort of restricting and almost sort of claustrophobic in this moment. And again, like I said, you've got that juxtaposition between the love and conflict, which is a key message of the poem, these conflicting emotions that come with being a mother to a child. As you ask, may you skate in the dark for one more hour. Now, I've pointed out the modal verb may, because it's a very, very polite form. So it demonstrates that even though there is this conflict, there's still this this relationship between them that is polite and is kind and is respectful. Like, you've got the sort of boundaries of mother and child there being presented, but this search for independence that Catrin is presenting, demonstrated through the very kind of lovely image of just skating out, you know, for another hour, very kind of typical, but it's so symbolic because it's in the dark. And, you know, yes, that tells us that there is a protection issue that is literal, like her mum is kind of going, oh, I don't want you to do that, it's dark out there. But it's also symbolic of all of the kind of uncertainty and dangers of life. And it's Gillian Clarke kind of thinking about the future and what that's going to mean, and how that love and that connection is going to tighten around her more, because she's going to worry and worry every time her daughter is going off and doing something that she doesn't know. Yes, it's a poem that is about conflict, but ultimately it is a poem about a mum just loving her daughter so much. It's beautiful. Right, that's it from me. Hopefully that was helpful. Already uploaded is a video on context and form to complement this one, so do have a little look at that, as well as the rest of my playlist on the Edexcel conflict poems. Please do subscribe and give the video a share if you find it useful. Help out your buddies too. And that's it from me. Thank you so much. Happy revising.